We don't always know when a family story crosses from private to irreversible. Sometimes it's a look that lasts a second too long, or a room that goes quiet for reasons no one explains. This one began at a garden party in Savannah, with a woman who had learned to keep her balance in places that never made room for her. Caroline Brooks is a cardiothoracic surgeon in Boston. What happened to her matters not because of what she does for a living, but because of what she learned to endure without asking for witnesses. This is how she remembers it. I arrived late, the way I always did. Not dramatic, just careful. The yard was already full. Strings of lights catching in the oak branches, glasses clinking. My mother hugged me with one arm and turned away before the second. Wesley was holding court near the drinks table, smiling like nothing in the world could touch him. "Caroline," he said, loud enough for people to hear. "You made it." "I did," I said. I set my gift down. I smoothed the front of my dress. He stepped closer, too close, and his elbow nudged my glass. Red wine spilled down my chest, warm and sudden. A few people laughed, unsure. Someone made a small sound and then stopped. Wesley lifted his hands. Clumsy of me. I stood there, breathing, letting it pass through me. He leaned in, his voice still pleasant. "Relax. You were never really part of this anyway." The music kept playing. No one moved. From where we were, the house looked calm. Lights steady, plates stacked. A party doing its job. I took a napkin, pressed it to the stain. I nodded once. "I'll be right back." We've seen rooms hold their breath like that before. It isn't noise that marks the moment. It's what doesn't happen. I washed my hands, returned, and stood where everyone could see me. Wesley was mid-story, already moving on. "Before you do," I said, my voice even. "There's something I need to say." I opened the folder I had brought, the one I had not planned to use. If this feels familiar, stay with it. Some truths only surface when someone decides to stop stepping aside. Wesley cleared his throat like he was about to keep going. I didn't let him. Mom reached for my sleeve. "Caroline, honey, maybe later. Just a minute," I said. My voice surprised me. Steady. It always did that when something finally snapped into place. Savannah stood behind Wesley, phone already angled low, not recording, just ready. She gave me a small smile, the kind that meant don't make this awkward. This wasn't new. None of it was. Growing up, the math was simple. Wesley needed help, so he got it. Savannah needed encouragement, so she got applause. I needed less, so I got silence. It worked, until it didn't. A cousin leaned in near the drinks. "You okay?" His eyes flicked to the stain. "I'm fine," I said. I dabbed again. The wine had already soaked in. Wesley laughed. "She's always fine." Mom nodded too quickly. "She's strong. Always has been." That was the word they used. Strong. It meant don't ask for more. Dad would have been standing by the grill right now, watching, not stepping in. He never did. He noticed things. That was his gift. He just didn't interrupt them. I took a breath. The folder felt heavier than it should have. Wesley tilted his head. "You got something to share. Or are we moving on?" I looked at him. Really looked. The smile, the confidence, the assumption that the ground would hold. Just clearing something up. I said, "Then you can tell your story." The music dipped between songs. A chair scraped. Someone coughed. I flipped the folder open and laid it flat on the table. Dad used to stand like this at gatherings. A step back. One hand on the edge of the table. Watching. Not intervening. If he were here, he'd be near the lights. Eyes moving, clocking every reaction without letting it show. Aunt Louise peered down at the papers. "Is that legal paperwork?" Wesley scoffed. "Come on. This is a birthday." "Let her finish," Uncle Grant murmured. He shifted his weight, uncomfortable but curious. I slid the top page forward. The corner caught on a drop of wine and left a faint pink smear. I didn't bother wiping it away. "This is the final version," I said. "Dated 14 months before Dad died." Mom's hand went to her mouth. "Henry never said he didn't?" I said, not out loud. Wesley's smile tightened. "You really think you can walk in here and read it?" Aunt Louise said, quiet, but firm. Wesley didn't touch the page. Neither did Savannah. She stared at the table, lips pressed together, phone forgotten in her hand. I kept going. He signed it after the board meeting in March. Same week he flew back from Boston. Mom looked up then. "You saw him?" "Yes." She swallowed. "He didn't tell me that. Dad wasn't big on announcements. He preferred decisions." I could hear him, plain as ever. "Let things show you who's paying attention." Wesley leaned back, arms crossed. "So what? You talked him into this?" I shook my head. "No. I just stopped pretending not to exist." A breeze shifted the lights overhead. Someone turned the music down another notch. The page lay there between us, doing what Dad always did best, saying nothing. Wesley laughed under his breath. "Boston really changed you." "It didn't," I said. "It just made it obvious what already worked." A woman near the edge of the table leaned toward her partner. "She's a surgeon, right heart," Mom said quickly. "Very demanding." I nodded once. "It is." Wesley tilted his head. "Funny. You never needed us for that." "I didn't." I said. That was the point. Silence pressed in, not heavy, just present. I felt it the way I do before an incision. Everyone waiting, no one wanting to go first. I thought about the hospital corridors back in Boston, the way the lights hum, the way people speak in half sentences because time matters, the way hands steady themselves before touching something that can't be rushed. Dad visited once, 2 years before he died. He stood in the hallway outside the operating rooms, arms folded, watching staff move past like he was learning a language he'd never speak. "You're calm," he'd said then, not proud, just observant. "I have to be." He nodded. "Good." Back at the table, Savannah finally looked up. "This is a lot, Caroline." "I know." Wesley shifted, irritation creeping in. "You think this makes you better?" "No," I said. "It just means I don't flinch." I rested my hands on the table, palms down. The folder stayed open. That steadiness followed me back here, whether they wanted it or not. Wesley tapped the edge of the table with 2 fingers. Not nervous, impatient, the way he always did when a room stopped orbiting him. "You're acting like this came out of nowhere," he said. "Dad wanted the business to stay intact." "It is intact," I said, "just not arranged the way you assumed." A man I barely recognized, one of Wesley's old contacts, shifted near the drinks. "You're still running operations." "Right," he asked Wesley, careful with his tone. "For now." Wesley replied quickly. "Nothing's changed." I watched the way his jaw tightened after a fraction of a second. He caught himself. Mom stepped in, smoothing her hands together. "Wesley's been carrying a lot since your father got sick. Long nights, travel." "That's true," I said. "He was busy." Wesley snorted. "Busy keeping the lights on. You borrowed to do that." I said. "From people who expect to be paid." His eyes flicked toward me. Sharp. "You wouldn't understand. I understand schedules," I said. "Deadlines, consequences." Savannah crossed her arms. "This isn't fair. It wasn't meant to be." I said. "It was meant to be clear." Wesley leaned back, forcing a grin. "You think paperwork makes you dangerous?" "No," I said. "I think pretending things aren't due makes them worse." A glass clinked somewhere behind us. Someone excused themselves quietly. Wesley's smile held, but the confidence underneath it had started to thin. I turned the page. The sound was small, but it landed. "This is the part you didn't see," I said. "The final instructions." Wesley leaned forward despite himself. There is no final part. There is, I said. He added it after the restructuring meeting. The one you skipped. Mom shook her head slowly. Henry wouldn't do this without telling us. He told me, I said, in his way. Savannah frowned. You mean that trip to Boston? Yes? Wesley laughed once. Sharp. So he flew north and rewrote his will over dinner. No dinner. I said, hospital cafeteria. He complained about the coffee. A few people shifted. Someone laughed quietly, unsure if it was allowed. He asked how long I planned to stay. I continued. I told him I had rounds the next morning. He nodded. That was it. Mom whispered. That's all he said. That was enough. Wesley pushed his chair back an inch. You expect us to believe he cut us out because you were busy? I expect you to read what he wrote. I said. Uncle Grant leaned closer, squinting. This section here. About control. I slid the page toward him. Majority ownership. Voting rights. Board authority. Wesley's face drained. That can't be right. It is, I said. Executed and filed. Effective immediately upon his death. Savannah's voice wavered. So what happens now? I looked at her. Now. Nothing dramatic. Wesley stood up. You think this ends here? I think it already did. I said, you just didn't hear it happen. A breeze lifted the edge of the paper. The lights hummed. Somewhere behind us. A bottle was set down too hard. Dad's handwriting sat between us, steady as ever. Wesley paced a short line behind his chair, back and forth, back and forth. He stopped when he noticed people watching. So you walk in with papers, he said, forcing a laugh. And suddenly you own everything. Not everything. I said, the part that votes. Uncle Grant cleared his throat. That's a controlling interest. Yes, I said. Mom pressed her palms together. Caroline, this feels extreme. It's structured. I said. He was careful about that. Wesley turned to her. You're just going to let this happen. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes moved from my face to the page to Wesley's hands, clenched too tight. Savannah spoke up. Quiet. What about the company loans? That's already addressed, I said. Wesley's head snapped toward me. Addressed how? I slid another document out. Not dramatic. Just placed it where he could see the header. These are claims purchased from 2 private vendors. I said they were outstanding. Past due, assigned last quarter. His voice dropped. You bought my debt. I acquired the claims. I said, legally. Uncle Grant leaned back. That means it means enforcement follows ownership. I said, not today. Not here. Wesley's laugh came out wrong. You planned this. I prepared. I said, there's a difference. A woman near the lights whispered something to her partner. Someone else stepped away from the table. Wesley leaned in close enough that I could smell the wine on his breath. You think this makes you untouchable? I met his eyes. I think it makes the rules visible. He straightened, jaw tight. This isn't over. I gathered the papers back into the folder. No, I said, it's finished. The word settled. Not loud, just final. The party thinned out the way they always do, quietly and in pieces. Someone said they had an early morning. Another forgot a jacket and came back for it. Eyes down. Plates were stacked. The music stopped for good. Mom stayed near the table, fingers smoothing the same crease in the cloth. You didn't have to do this here. I didn't plan to. I said, it happened here. She nodded. Once. Your father would have hated the scene. He hated scenes. I said, he didn't hate clarity. Wesley stood by the back door, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and sharp. He glanced over once, then turned away, pacing onto the patio. Savannah lingered. She picked at a chip in the edge of a plate. I didn't know it was this bad. I know. I said. She hesitated. What happens to us? Tonight, I said. Nothing. That seemed to surprise her. She let out a breath she'd been holding. Okay. Uncle Grant squeezed my shoulder as he passed. Drive safe. I flew. I said. He paused, then smiled. Of course you did. Mom watched me gather my things. Will you call? I looked at her. The question sat between us. Unfinished. I'll let you know. I said. Outside. The lights were already going dark. Wesley's voice rose, then cut off. A door closed. I stepped away without rushing. The night felt cooler, clearer. The flight back to Boston left before sunrise. I watched Savannah fade into the crowd at the gate, her apron folded over one arm, hair pulled back tighter than it had been the night before. She didn't wave. I didn't either. We held each other's gaze for a second longer than necessary, then turned away. Work picked up fast. It always did. Rounds, consults, the rhythm of days that didn't ask me where I'd been. A nurse caught the edge of my sleeve one afternoon. You okay, doctor? Brooks? I am, I said, and meant it. The board meetings came later, remote, clean, no raised voices. The company moved forward the way it was supposed to, quieter than before. Wesley's name stopped coming up. When it did, it was in the past tense. Mom left a message once, just her voice, softer than I remembered. I hope you're resting. I listened to it twice. I didn't call back. One evening, after a long case, I sat alone in the locker room and let the silence settle. No pressure. No expectation to explain myself. I realized how long I'd been bracing for impact that never came. Caroline Brooks didn't lose a family that night in Savannah. She let go of a role she'd outgrown. The life I have now doesn't ask me to be smaller so someone else can feel steady. It doesn't require me to stay quiet to keep the peace. That changed something in me. Not loudly. Permanently. If you've ever watched a moment like that pass and felt it lodge somewhere deep, you already know how it works. Some stories don't end with a door slamming. They end with a woman walking forward, hands free. We noticed the quiet afterward, too. The way the room finally emptied and how she didn't look back.